Hello and welcome. This is Darius Barazandeh, host of the U.S. Revolution. And if you're about to watch this amazing session that we did, then you're part of a group of humans on this planet who are ascending and moving into a higher frequency. You're not here by accident, and I'd like to offer you a special gift that will help you to adjust to some of these frequencies, plug in even deeper, and it's an energy activation MP3 that will double the power of your energy field in less than 57 seconds. It's absolutely free, and it's the first link in the description down below, but it's also going to let you get to hear calls like this one live and get daily help from healers, teachers, and masters all over the world. It's absolutely free, and it's part of what we're doing every day at U-Auth Revolution. So if you feel called in your heart, you can click the link down below, and the special session that you wanted to watch and experience will start right now.
Brent Phillips is what many would call an unlikely healer. He grew up with a fascination with computers and technology. He actually attended the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, where he graduated at the very top of his class with Phi Beta Kappa honors and received both a bachelor's degree and a master's in computer science and engineering. He's literally a very, very brilliant individual, and he was also admitted to a PhD program and was pursuing his actual doctorate at the prestigious MIT Lab for Computer Science and was researching advanced Internet technologies when the Internet went mainstream in the mid-1990s. Brent actually left that program to become a founding member of a high-end web design firm, and he worked for clients such as Sony, Nissan Motors, Disneyland. He also founded a video game developer named Lyra Studios in 1996. Now, a lot of you say, well, what does this have to do with all of Brent and his story? Well, you're going to find out what happened to him as he was going so deep into that world. But what he actually has is this amazing skill to understand technology. And the human computer, the human superconscious and subconscious and conscious computer is essentially very similar to the technology that he has so geniusly mastered. And you're going to hear his story, what he did, but what he discovered was a form of healing. And he became one of the early students of Viana Stabal, the founder of Theta Healing, and he became a master of Theta Healing and actually began to understand exactly where science meets spirit and unlocked in his own way the formula for miracles. Now, what Brent does is very, very, very powerfully combining his brilliant understanding of the computer world and sort of how systems work and adding that to the spiritual and human system, he's developed really what I think is the key formula for miracles in 2012. And he actually has a patent-pending formula for miracle technology that he's going to be sharing with us as well. He's performed over 6,000 hours of private sessions. He's witnessed literally thousands of miraculous healings, including, you're going to hear about his mother, which I'll ask him to share what happened there, and I will tell you it was a very, very amazing thing. But also he's seen things such as, and I'm just going to read these out, hundreds of miraculous healings on people with problems and challenges such as HIV, asthma, cancer, childhood abuse, allergies, many other injuries and illnesses, including some that are quote-unquote incurable. I'm going to read a few of these. Drug disease and depression, Parkinson's disease, money and prosperity issues, job, career, and money blocks removed, relationship blocks removed, back pain removed, chronic pain removed, back and hip pain removed, migraine headaches removed, health and energy unlocked, autism and parenting, neck pain, emotional transformation, sinus infection, speech disorders, food allergies for cats, hip pain, stage fright, weight loss, panic attacks, lupus, kidney stones, prosperity, toxic mold, energy and prosperity, bipolar disorder, prosperity, heart palpitations, cancer, insomnia. It goes on and on and on and on. And the reason is if we understand the human spiritual supercomputer, every physical manifestation that you're dealing with or that you're not seeing show up in your life that you want is a result of something underlying it. Let's welcome, with a huge amount of love, back after 2 years, it's been way too long, the amazing Brent Phillips to the U-Auth Revolution on the count of three. 1, 2, and 3. Brent, welcome back to the U-Auth Revolution Ascension 2012.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here, especially at the timing. It's quite a powerful time to be doing this work.
Absolutely. Well, I want to get started. We have a lot of new people that maybe have not heard of your work and some that are familiar but are not familiar with some of the upgrades and things that have been happening recently. I'd like to start out with your story. It's mind-blowing. How did an MIT-trained software engineer become a healer and actually decode for the rest of the world what I think is one of the most practicable and repeatable formula for miracles on this planet?
Well, it's kind of a funny thing because I'm the first to admit that I never really set out with this as my goal. It's one of those things that just sort of happened along the way. As they say, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans, right? So very much I grew up as the typical technology nerd. I loved computers. I loved the early video games. I was fascinated by electronics. And so when it came time for me to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, it was a pretty easy decision because when it came time to go to college and choose a major and a profession, the one thing that I was very good at that somebody would pay me for was programming computers. So I ended up in Boston at MIT for my undergraduate work, and it was there that I discovered a huge passion in my life, which was the Internet. And I know that sounds kind of funny today, but 25 years ago, very few people were aware of it. And I was just blown away by the potential of this online world. And really, I saw it was going to change the world, and it has, far beyond even what I could envision then. And so I made computer networking, in particular Internet programming, the focus of my studies. I went on to get my bachelor's degree and my master's degree at MIT, and I was actually moving towards the PhD in the doctoral program at the Laboratory for Computer Science under Professor David Tannenhaus in the Telemedia Networks and Systems group when the Internet boom hit. And so like a lot of my lab mates, I bailed out of graduate school, figuring that I would move to California, start an Internet company, work really hard for a couple years, and then sell the company, make millions of dollars, and then move to some tropical island to go hot tub with supermodels. So that was my plan. Didn't quite work out that way. Instead, things got off to a pretty good start. I was a founding partner in the Jameson Gold Consulting Agency, which was my first company. And really, in the first year, things went from nothing to light speed almost overnight. It's kind of funny in retrospect that the very first website I ever created in my entire life was actually for the launch of the Sony PlayStation in the summer of 1995. That was my first website.
Wow.
We did a lot of high-profile work for several divisions of Sony. We worked for Nissan Motors. We worked for Disneyland. A lot of Fortune 500 clients. In fact, things were going so well, and my partners and I were so excited that we started a second company, Lyra Studios, to create online video games, because that was a huge passion for me and my partners. And it is no exaggeration to say we created an entire industry of what today are known as massively multiplayer online role-playing games. I made the very first one back in the 90s. However, there was a big downside, which was I was pushing myself so hard, all I was doing was working. I was working at minimum 60, 70 hours a week, sometimes even 80 or 90 or 100 hours, because, again, it seemed like a reasonable sacrifice for me that I would just work really hard for a couple of years, and in return I'd make millions of dollars on the Internet boom. But it didn't work out that way. Instead, before I reached that finish line, my body broke down. And I developed a crippling case of today what we would call repetitive stress injuries. And so I developed severe pain in my wrists and my elbows and my shoulders and my neck and my back. It was very difficult to use a computer. I could barely drive. I could only drive about 5 or 10 minutes at a time. And in fact, my pain was so severe that I had to move in with my parents, because on some days the pain was so bad I had to have my mother help me cut my food. So this wasn't just a little tingle in my wrist. This was severe pain that turned my whole life upside down. But when it first happened, I didn't panic, because up to that point in my life, whenever I'd had a lot of trouble with my health, I'd just go to doctors, and they would give me something, and they would take care of it. And so I wasn't too concerned at first. I figured, well, the doctors will get me better. And so I went to doctors, and they gave me splints, and they gave me different drugs, and they put me through physical therapy, and they told me to stay off of it and use heat and ice and all this stuff, conventional treatment. And after about a year of that, nothing was changing. And so I started seeking out the top quality orthopedist, and I found the best physical therapy programs, and actually spent 3 years in very intensive physical and occupational therapy trying to get better through conventional treatment. And that didn't work either. And so that led me to my first, as they call it, dark night of the soul, where everything kind of fell apart all at the same time, which was in 1998, when in a short amount of time, one thing that happened was that my doctors essentially gave up on me. They declared me what they call permanent and stationary, which is workers' compensation lingo that means that you are incurable, and they don't want to waste any more treatment on you because they think there's no chance you could ever recover. And so at the time, I was 27 years old, and I was told by doctors, you're always going to live in severe pain, you're never going to work again, and your best hope is to just try to find someone that can take care of you. So that was devastating. Yeah, being told by the very well-respected doctors they didn't even want to see you again because you were wasting their time because you're incurable. Around the same time, I had also had a falling out with my partners because the video game company had lost 3 publishers without cause, which basically means that we hit every deadline, hit every milestone, and just blew everybody away with our work. But due to business circumstances that were beyond our control, such as mergers and bankruptcies, we lost all of our funding 3 times. And so on top of that, my partners had lost patience with me because I had literally created these companies out of nothing when I came out of school, and I was there working 60, 80, 100 hours a week, bootstrapping 2 fast-growing internet companies right at the beginning of the internet boom. And then a few years later, I was lucky by using a lot of heat and ice and pain gels and things, I was lucky if I could spend an hour a day at the keyboard. And even that was very painful for me. And so I had a falling out with my partners, and I lost my position. The website company ended up being sold behind my back for millions of dollars, and there was a lot of bad feeling. There were multiple lawsuits. And what I call the cherry on top of that sundae was that I found out later that my lifelong best friend, who had been one of my partners, had also been secretly seeing the woman I was in love with behind my back. So I kind of took it on all three fronts. I had a terrible heartbreak.
Wow.
I had lost millions of dollars, and I had such crippling pain and injuries to the point where doctors declared me incurable and didn't even want to see me again. So that was really devastating. And so I got really depressed at first, but I had a friend who tried to get me into positive thinking, which today we call the law of attraction, but back in the 90s we called it positive thinking, and it's really the same stuff. And so I started listening to motivational tapes, and I put power words on my walls, and I said my mantras 108 times a day, and I did all these different things to try to make myself feel better, to get into a positive mind state to change my life. And I did that for a while, but it didn't seem to change anything. Nothing seemed to work. And so I will admit in retrospect that I threw out the baby with the bathwater. And I decided it was just a bunch of new age hippie bunk created by people in order to trick desperate people out of their money. Of course, later I realized that was very short-sighted. But at the time, I was so frustrated and disappointed that it didn't work for me. I didn't just throw my vision board away. I tore it into pieces and burned it in the fireplace because I was so disappointed. And so the next thing that happened to me was I got introduced to alternative medicine, which was really a lifesaver because if not for that, I probably would have really spiraled down into addiction and depression. And so I started going to see different alternative medicine practitioners. And I started seeing homeopaths and acupuncturists and herbologists, and I saw people who did reiki and energy work, and I started doing all these different crazy diets and cleanses. I took all manner of different supplements. I spent tens of thousands of dollars on different nutritional supplements, and I had pretty much every healing device and machine known to man. I had lasers, I had electric stim, I had subsonic stimulators, I had chi machines and vibration machines, and I had ultrasound, and I had titanium tape and different stretching devices, and I mean, you name it. I did all these different cleanses. I even went on a 100% raw food diet for a couple months. All these things trying to get better. And long story short, I spent the next several years as a full-time patient. All I did was chase treatment. 7 days a week, 365 days a year for years. All I was doing was going from person to person trying to get better. And what happened was always the same story. I'd find some new practitioner and they'd have some healing energy system, or they'd have a supplement, or they'd have a machine, or they'd have a meditation or a cleanse or a diet or something. And they would tell me something like, hey, Brent, I'm really glad you found me because this is really what can make a difference for you. And they'd tell me how maybe 80 or 90 or even 97% of the people that would come to them would see incredible results, and they'd be out of pain and be back and have a normal life within a month or a week or 6 months or whatever the time frame was. And so I would sign on and I'd give it a shot. And just so all the listeners know, when I say, for example, that I tried acupuncture, I don't mean I did 1 or 2 sessions or that I went to like a weekend seminar. What I mean by I tried acupuncture is I went out and found the best Chinese doctor I could, and I went to see him twice a week for the next 2 years. So I was very serious about doing all this, but nothing ever worked for me. And what would happen eventually after 6 months or a year or 2 years of treatments, they just kind of shrug their shoulders and go, I'm sorry, Brent, I don't know what's wrong, but this just isn't working for you. You just happen to fall into that 1% or 5% or whatever the number was of those that just don't respond to this treatment. And they just kind of go, sorry, try something else. And this didn't just happen 1 or 2 or 5 times. This happened dozens of times, dozens and dozens of times. I remember one time for my disability lawyer, I put together a list of all the different treatments and doctors I had seen, and there were 54 different people on it. So that's a lot. Yeah, it was like 18 pages long or something. It was ridiculous, and nothing worked for me, and it was so frustrating. And so the next big cliff that I went off was in 2003, when I was desperate, sort of at the end of my rope, and I agreed to have an experimental surgery that an orthopedist thought could help me get out of pain and maybe get me back to work. And so I went and had the surgery, and I had hoped that it would make me better, but just the opposite happened. After the surgery, not only did I have the same amount of pain and limitation, but after the surgery, I couldn't move my right arm at all. My right arm was completely frozen at the elbow. And so it was like that for 4 months. And so I tried all sorts of things to get it to move, manipulations and dynasplints and, local anesthetic injections and all these different things. But nothing got my arm to move. And it was then that I heard about this energy healing thing called theta healing. And I have to admit, I didn't really think twice about it at first because I'd been to healers before. I'd been to just about every healer under the sun at that point, and nothing made any difference for me. But I went to check out theta healing at the urging of my Aunt Lauren because her good friend Terry had had a major health crisis that almost killed her. And she found this healing technique called theta healing developed by this woman in Idaho, Vianna Steibel. And not only did it save her life, but she was so impressed with theta healing that she walked away from her high-flying career in finance to go be a professional healer. And so I remember seeing Terry's email about this, and I remember thinking to myself, wow, this woman's really gone nuts. I thought she'd just gone off the deep end of the New Age pool. But I wanted to give it a shot, so I booked a session, and I went to go see Terry. And so she talked to me a little bit about the power of the subconscious mind, and she introduced me to the practice of muscle testing, which I had done a little bit before, but I didn't really understand it. And so she basically explained to me how the mind is very powerful and creates everything that happens in our reality, but that it's a primarily subconscious process. And so it doesn't seem to us that we're creating our life experiences, but that's what's actually happening. And so through the process of the muscle testing and question and answer, we talked about my belief in God. We talked about what happened in my first marriage. We talked about what had happened as a child with my parents. We talked about what happened with my best friend and the betrayal and the injuries and the pain and the loss of millions of dollars. We talked about the heartbreak, and it was all a very interesting process. But I'll admit, I was sitting there, and part of me was going, well, this is all well and good. There's nothing wrong with talking about your feelings, but that's not really why I'm here. I'm here because I want my arm to move and get out of pain so I can get back to work and restart my life. And I didn't see how talking about my feelings was going to change any of that, right? And so at the end of the session, she said, okay, Brent, we're going to do a healing on your arm now. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, go for it, right? And I'm sitting across the room from her because that this process is done entirely with the mind. There's no machine, there's no hands-on, there's nothing like that. And so she's sitting across the room from me, and she kind of goes into a meditative trance, and I'm kind of like looking around the room, thinking, gee, you know, what am I going to watch on TV today? And then out of nowhere, something popped and moved inside my elbow, and it was remarkable. I wasn't expecting that. And I was like, oh my God. And she opened her eyes and smiled and said, try your arm, and I did. And I swear it was like the surgery had never happened. I could move my arm again without any trouble, no catch, no hitch, no pain. And so that was the miracle that hooked me on this. And so I remember looking at Terry, and I was like, hey, Terry, I don't know what you just did, but I have to learn this. And I did, and I mastered it, and it has been my mission ever since then. That was about 10 years ago now, to not only learn and master this, but take it out to the world and present it in an accessible way. Because in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with the New Age mysticism and all that. That's okay. But I think a lot of the time it obscures the real meaning and the functionality of these processes. And so I've made it my mission to really strip it down to its bare essentials to find out what really works about this and get rid of all the rest of it. And so offer a system and tools that are very direct and to the point that deliver real results in people's lives. And to me, having a heavy background in science and engineering, I wanted to figure out how this worked. Because let's face it, there's a lot of people in this industry that run around and make claims about how their work is scientific or validated by quantum physics. And, well, I got some news for you. First of all, most of them have no idea what they're talking about. And even the ones that do generally have very little or no scientific or engineering credentials. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to bring the rigor of science and engineering to this very left or to this very right-brained kind of huggy-feely world. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that I thought that many of us want something that's right to the point, that shows you exactly what you need and why it works and gives you powerful tools that make a real difference in your life. And that's why I'm here, because I've learned some incredible things along the way, and I have seen literally hundreds, it's probably a few thousand miraculous instant healings since I've been doing this. And I want to get my message and my tools out there because let's face it, we need this. The old methods, the old systems don't work very well anymore. And we don't really have good answers to a lot of the problems in the world. And so that's why I'm here, to offer some hope, to offer some practical tools and resources that everybody listening can start to use to see some change in their lives very quickly.
It's an incredible story, and I mean, every time I hear it, I get chills. And there's another element to this story that is also mind-blowing, is that you actually used this to help your mother at some point, I remember. Can you take us to kind of what was going on with your mom, and then what you did and what happened?
Sure. There's been, I've seen so many miracles happen that it's hard to, at some point they all start to blend together, which sounds terrible, but that's what happens when you see miracles happen on a daily basis. But there's a couple that really stand out that affected me personally. And one was the healing on my mother. The other was on my son, which may not have happened yet the first time we talked. And what happened with my mother was in early 2010, she was diagnosed with clear cell endometrial cancer. And if you know anything about cancers, that's one of the death sentences, meaning that it has less than a 5% survival rate. And I remember when we got the news, my sister was inconsolable because she's a nurse and she understood what it meant. And she cried for 3 days straight. She couldn't even talk because she was so devastated. But I thought, well, hey, it's no big deal. It's just cancer. I've healed cancer plenty of times in my clients. Why not in my mother? And so I talked to my mom. I told her what we were going to do. And she was very into this process because I'll admit that the first year I did this, she thought I had joined a cult. But a year into it, I had come back from a training class with Vienna, and my mother had suffered from post-polio syndrome her whole life and had terrible pain. And no amount of doctors or Chinese doctors or naturopaths were ever able to make a difference. And doing a 5-minute healing process on her, the next day she said 90% of her pain was gone. It was a miracle. And so that opened her mind to this. And so she took the training class and was very into it. And so when she got sick with cancer, she was like, absolutely, let's do some healing. And so we did one session on the phone. It took less than an hour. We did the belief work and the muscle testing. And similar to what I did with Terry, I asked her a lot of questions about her life and what was going on. And at the end of the session afterwards, we did a healing. And so what she described it was she felt like an intense heat, almost like a burning heat inside her abdomen. And so after we did the healing, she went and had surgery because the doctors, when they got the biopsy results, they scheduled her as soon as they possibly could because they literally thought she might drop dead before they could even get to operate. And so she went through the surgery, and after she had recovered enough, she went back to see her doctor again. And her doctor sat her down and said, Karen, I have to say that I've been doing this for decades, and I've never seen anything like this happen. He said that after they did the operation, when they removed all the tissue, they could not find a single clear cell anywhere in any of the tissue that was removed, which blew him away because when they had done a biopsy, it was all over the place. And so he just shrugged his shoulders and wrote it off as a spontaneous remission that couldn't be explained. Unfortunately, because my mom, like a lot of people, was too shy and embarrassed to admit she had seen a healer, she didn't mention it, which is, I think, unfortunate. A lot of people don't want to tell their doctors they saw a healer, but that's exactly what happened. And so it literally saved her life. And statistically, she should have been dead 2 years ago. But she's alive and doing well. And really the only long-term damage there was really no damage done by the cancer. The only long-term damage she's dealing with is the damage done by the surgery and the chemotherapy they put her through.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was 2 years ago. And so that's absolutely towards the top of my list in terms of most important healings. However, there's another one that happened since then that I think may top the whole bunch, which was that when my son was born 2 years ago, when JJ was pregnant with him, she had a very difficult pregnancy, and in the middle, at about 24 weeks, she had a silent bleed. And so I had to rush her to the hospital in the middle of the night, and those are very, very dangerous. There's a good chance the mother and child will both die. And what the doctors told me was, they said, Brent, it's only at 24 weeks, but because of this silent bleed, nearly always the child has to come out within the next 48 to 72 hours. And they told me that his chances weren't that good, that even at the best neonatal care units in the world, when you're born at 24 weeks, it's still less than 50-50. And even those that survive are at higher risk for all sorts of diseases and disorders and problems in their lives. So that was frightening. And so I just pushed the fear aside. I called a couple of my friends and colleagues and did a healing on her and my unborn son. And again, in complete defiance of expectation, the doctors could not explain it. He stayed in another 7 weeks and was born later at 30-some weeks, which is much safer. And yes, and he has been more or less a completely healthy, perfect little boy. And so I really believe that not only did this save my mother's life, it also saved my son's life and his mother's life, which is pretty remarkable. And he has turned into a little baby genius, which I'm so proud of. And at 1 year old, he already knows all his numbers and letters. He can count to 10 forwards and backwards, and can recognize all the letters on your T-shirt or anything he sees, which I think is pretty amazing.
Yes. Oh my God, that's incredible.
So that's just a couple of stories, but there are thousands I could tell, thousands. Because this truly is.
Well, I mean, it is incredible. I mean, I've got to ask this question. I mean, as you look back on this and you understand how this process works, I mean, what is really happening? I mean, diagram for us sort of like the human computer from 10,000 degrees so we can understand like what shifted, what changed in these situations, what were you able to tweak, or what virus were you able to remove that was causing these manifestations?
Sure. So it's actually pretty simple to understand. It took me years to figure this out, but once I did, it was pretty easy. And so I'm going to use the computer software metaphor, which I'm hoping that at this point, pretty much everybody has used a computer or a smartphone. And so the way we're trained to live our lives, for better or for worse, is very much to go solve problems at the level they present at. So, for example, if you have a physical health problem, like you have a tumor in your body, the doctors will poison it or cut it out to try to destroy it.
Yes.
And so it's the same with money. If we're having struggle with money, we always just try to find a new job or try to find ways to save, right? And so that's called try to solve a problem at the level it presents at. Well, Einstein, who was one of the greatest geniuses of our time, told us that that doesn't work. He famously said, you can never solve a problem at the level it presents at. And so you want to understand that the way you create your life is very much the way that a computer creates the programs that go on the screen. And so the way that we're all trained to live our lives, imagine you're sitting down at your computer and you're having trouble with your software. The way that we're trained to live our lives is very much akin to having trouble with your software. So you start drawing on your monitor with whiteout and black markers trying to fix it. Right? You can see how that's trying to solve the problem level it presents at.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Can everybody imagine how ridiculous that would be if you didn't like what was showing up on your computer and you just take a crayon and say, okay, I've got to write it on the screen. I mean, that's literally how we try to change our life many times.
Exactly how we try to change our lives. And so if you know anything at all about computers, you know that the problem isn't your screen. The problem is the codes on the hard drive, right? That the programs are created by hidden codes on the hard drive. And so if you have a problem with software, you need to get at those hidden codes and make a change there. And if you do that, you can see a complete transformation, a total instant healing of the programs on the screen. And so it would be as if the people ran their computers the way we run modern medicine. It would be every time you had a trouble with your computer, you'd have to hire your computer tech to come out and draw on your monitor for you every time you wanted to run a new program. That's exactly the way that Western medicine approaches health, right?
Yes.
That doesn't work very well, right? That's not helpful. Instead, you need to get at the code inside of you. And so all of us on the inside are full of software, exactly the same way that your computer is. I call it the software of your soul. The human spiritual supercomputer is another great term for that. And it's quite simple that you create and attract all the different experiences of your life in the same way that a computer creates programs on the screen. You're simply running hidden codes. And if you know how to identify and change those codes, you can see remarkable shifts. You can see miraculous changes. And you're getting to the source of the problem, right? You install some new software or you debug the software that's there, and then you've truly solved the problem forever. And so let's take this metaphor even one step further. Let's take the example of the instant healing my mother experienced. That defies science and medical explanation, because to most of us, we see reality as having a certain momentum, that we're so focused on the external world that we think that, for example, if you have a tumor in your body one moment, that unless something happens to it, right, unless you have surgery to remove it or take a bunch of chemicals or radiation to burn it or poison it away, that it will continue to be there. That's actually not quite true. That's an illusion. It seems that way, but that's not how it works. The way our entire lives work, including our physical body, is very much like the computer. You know that the reason, let's say you look at your computer screen, if your computer screen looks like it's the same moment to moment, it's not because the picture on the screen is solid or has some momentum that's inherent to it. Instead, what's actually happening is that same image is being redrawn on your monitor many times a second, usually 60, 80, maybe 120 times a second. And so if you're continuously redrawing the same image over and over, it looks like it's not changing. It looks static, but that's an illusion. What's actually happening is it's being completely recreated out of nothing many times per second. And if you send it the same signals over and over and over again, right, if you run the same software, you're going to get the same image. And you will be tricked into thinking that it's a static image, but that's an illusion. Instead, what's happening is you're simply creating the same image over and over and over again very quickly because you're feeding it the same codes. And so in the same way that you can go click an icon on your desktop and launch a new program, and your entire computer screen changes instantly, right? We're all familiar with that. That doesn't seem too remarkable, does it?
Right.
Your life works the same way. If you know how to get into those codes inside of you to reprogram the software of your soul, those subconscious belief systems or subconscious programs, then what can happen is you can recreate your reality in an instant in a very different way. And so even your physical body is like that. The reason you seem to have the same body moment to moment isn't because it's actually solid. Science has proven it's not. It's just energy. It really is. It's that you're feeding the universe the same codes over and over again, so it seems to create the same body. And it seems to change very slowly because most of us only know how to change those codes very slowly. But if you know how to change them quickly, you can see a remarkable, very quick change in your body. And that's how a cancerous tumor can instantly disappear. Quite simply, you just take out the code that's creating it and it disappears. In the same way that if there's some program running on your computer screen, you simply close that program and it disappears. It's really that simple. And this, of course, is much bigger than physical health. The process is identical if we're talking about wealth and money and prosperity, if we're talking about love and relationships, if we're talking about emotional health, if we're talking about spiritual development, intuitive development, energetic ascension. It's all the same problem, or it's all the same process, no matter what the problem. And so I will answer right now 90% of the questions coming in, which are usually 90% of the questions I'm typically asked are of some form, hey, Brent, this sounds great. My problem is X, Y, Z. Does it work on that?
Right.
And I'm going to answer that all right now and say that what I have to offer, this formula for miracles, the subconscious reprogramming, works on anything created by your mind, which is everything.
Wow.
And so that's why you see all these different testimonials on problems that are all over the map, right? Physical health, emotional health, money, prosperity, career, love, relationships, intimacy, intuitive development, spiritual ascension. That's because it's all created by your mind. And it's one tool, one process that you use on any of these. So yes, if your problem is created by your mind, this can make a difference. And pretty much that's everything. However, at the same time, I really want to emphasize that it took me years to penetrate a lot of the mythologies and misunderstandings I had about how this works. And I would love to shortcut that for your listeners. And so I want to resist the temptation to see this only as a magic wand that you wave and your problems disappear. I can guarantee you that if you use these tools, you will see that happen. For example, anybody that comes to my training classes, I offer 110% miracle money back guarantee, which is if you learn this and use it and you haven't seen some sort of miracle happen for you or someone else in 6 months, you can get all your money back and more for your trouble. And way less than 1% of my students ever ask for their money back. It's like 0.2%. But here's the kicker. You don't get to choose the miracles. The miracles choose you. And so sometimes you will apply these tools and literally see a miraculous change. Diseases disappear, injuries heal overnight, people make money in days or weeks or hours. People who haven't had a date in 5 years fall in love and are married in 2 months. I've seen all those things happen, certainly more than once. But understand that it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you get a miracle. Other times what will happen is you will create a process, and by changing the programs inside of you, by shifting your energy, you will manifest into your experience the tools and resources and experiences you need to take you to where you want to go. So sometimes you get a miracle, sometimes you get a process, but it always works. So for example, let's say you wanted to lose weight. This works beautifully for weight loss.
Right.
Have not yet seen anybody lose 50 or 100 pounds overnight. But what will happen is when you clear the emotional underlying reasons why you carry that weight, when you clear the subconscious blocks to being thin, to being healthy, to being full of energy, to feeling good, you will bring into your life whatever you need to achieve that. And so for some people, it might be finding a new diet or a new exercise program or a good nutritional counselor. Or it might be that they get a new job and they can move out of a toxic environment, and that eliminates so much of their stress, they're able to stay on course and eat well, right? Everyone's going to be a little different. But I like to emphasize that because really the only time people get disappointed with what I have to offer is when they're hyper-focused on one problem that they just have to wave that magic wand and it has to go away today, or else they're going to be disappointed and get angry.
Right, right,
And
yes.
I understand where you're coming from. You know, that's where I came from too. But if you see this as a tool, I see what I offer as a set of higher dimensional tools that literally allow you to access the intelligence and power of a higher dimensional space. And so I don't want to get too esoteric, but essentially what we're offering here is the ability to work with the subconscious mind. And once you've programmed your subconscious mind to create something for you, again, physical health, emotional health, wealth, money, success, love, intimacy, spiritual ascension, whatever it is you'd like, your subconscious mind then works 24/7 with the law of attraction in ways you could never imagine to bring you that. That's what I mean by higher dimensional. It acts in ways you could not understand or foresee or expect or force to happen. And anybody who's been doing this work for a while knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I want to ask you really quick, because one of the things you talked about with the computer analogy was if you change the code, if you go and you change the code, you change what shows up on the screen. Similarly, if you change what is in our subconscious mind, then our life will change. Yet the challenge, unlike a computer code, many times is that we don't know what's in our subconscious mind. We don't know what's in there. There's things in there that we can't access that are layers upon layers. So, I mean, how, is that true? And then how do we get around that unknown, like, subconscious black box that so many people have tried for years to change their subconscious beliefs through hypnosis, through other things, and they can't?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the art of it comes in. And so first we recognize that, number one, we actually are very powerful in creating our reality. That's important. But my guess is that all the listeners have already kind of get that, or you guys wouldn't be here. However, the kicker is that that's a primarily unconscious process. That's over 99% unconscious. And so it seems like we're victims and things happen to us. The answer is that your subconscious mind is doing this and you're not aware of it, because a lot of these belief systems in the subconscious, they come in through genetic memories, they come from childhood memories, things you could never expect. And so if you want to make a shift in your life, you recognize that, okay, I need to get in and change this, what's in my subconscious. I need to clear the blocks, right? I need to put in some new programs to facilitate wealth, love, prosperity, fulfillment. How do we achieve that? Well, there's really two things we need to do. Number one, we need a way to ask the subconscious mind what's in there. That's actually pretty easy. We'll cover that in a minute. Number two is, once you've identified what's wrong, you need some tools to change it, right? Because just knowing you have a problem will just make you frustrated if you can't do anything about it. Fortunately, I have a whole toolkit of options that you can mix and match to change those blocks, to change the subconscious when you've identified the problems. So first, how do we know what's in the subconscious? Well, if I want to know what's in your conscious mind, that's easy. I'll just ask you, right? I'll just say, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? But again, that's only 1%. And most of the blocks and unconscious stuff that's there, you'll have no idea it's there. There's no way in the world you could ever consciously be able to figure that out. And so that's where the process of muscle testing comes in. And muscle testing is something that may be familiar to a lot of listeners. It's been around since the 60s, also known as applied kinesiology. A lot of naturopaths and Chinese doctors and holistic healers use this. But what you want to recognize is, and I know, this may not go over well with everybody, but I have to say it because it's the truth, which is that muscle testing is not a pure connection to perfect truth. That's how a lot of people use it, but it's not quite that.
Right.
Instead, what you want to understand is muscle testing is a direct way to ask questions of your subconscious. It is a way to identify exactly what programs you have running and which you don't. And the reason that a lot of healers and holistic professionals get away with it, treating it like a pipeline to truth, is simply because your body, which is your subconscious intelligence, tends to be very accurate about itself. And so if you ask your body with muscle testing what foods to take or what supplements to take, a lot of the time you will get accurate answers. But you want to remember that those are simply belief systems held in the subconscious mind. They're not necessarily pure truth. However, when you identify what your beliefs are, you'll find that you always create your life in a way that is congruent or consistent with those belief systems. So, for example, let's say you muscle test the belief rich people are greedy. If you test true to that, what that means is your body, your unconscious mind believes that's true. Now, is that a verifiable fact? Of course not, right? Because some rich people are greedy and some aren't. But if you hold that belief system, that's what you're going to create in your experience. And so you would probably want to get rid of that, because if you hold the belief system subconsciously that rich people are greedy, then that is a subconscious block. Your subconscious mind will use that as an excuse to push away prosperity, because unless you want to become greedy, you're not going to want to have the money. Another common one would be the belief that you have to be poor to be close to God. Very few of us today actually believe that consciously. Most people who have been exposed to energy healing spirituality would accept that, sure, there's no reason why you couldn't be wealthy and close to God, right? There's no reason why you can't be rich and spiritual. Yeah. But many of us hold that, and you need to use muscle testing to see if it's there. Why? Because if you don't, if you just think, oh, I don't believe that, it's not there, that's one of the ways your subconscious will sabotage you. So don't think you consciously know what you have to test it. So we'll cover how to do that in just a minute. But I wanted to quickly answer the second question, which is, okay, Brent, now that I've muscle tested these blocks, now what do I do, right?
Exactly.
Well, you could go panic. Just throw your arms in the air, scream, run in circles, right? Get it out of your system. Okay. Once you're done panicking, there's actually a variety of tools that I can offer to help you clear this stuff. And so to give like a 2-minute history lesson, it's fascinating to see how this technology evolved. The first way I learned to do this was one-on-one, right? That's how I originally learned how to do healing. You sit in a room with someone, you work with them, you use intuition and different tools to help them identify the blocks, muscle test them, and then clear them. So that's a great start. But private sessions are very limiting and tend to be expensive. And so I wanted to do better. I'm an innovator. I'm always pushing the edge. And so the next thing I learned how to do was how to do one-on-one remotely. Honestly, not a big deal. Lots of healers nowadays learn how to work remotely. And so the last several years, I do almost all of my private sessions through phone or Skype. The next thing I wanted to do was learn how to work on a group. And so I learned how to do one-on-many healing and clear blocks on an entire group at once. And so in 2005, I started doing teleseminars as a live event in Los Angeles, where once a month I would rent a room and everyone would get together and they would tell me all their blocks and I would clear them on the whole group. So that was cool. But that still wasn't good enough for me. I wanted to do better. So the next obvious step was to learn how to work on a group remotely. And I did that. I learned how to set up a teleseminar and work on people from all over the world all at once, clearing all of their blocks. And so starting in about 2009, I moved the Wealth Club and my other club so that I could work with people all around the world. And I still do that on a regular basis, several times a month. But that still wasn't good enough for me. I wanted to do even better.
Okay.
And so what I saw as the grail of this work, something that no one had ever done before that I was aware of, was to literally take this process of healing and clearing and bottle it and mass produce it to get it out to the world at a very low per unit cost, a fraction of what it would cost to do private sessions or even remote groups. And so this took me years of tinkering to develop, but I eventually got it right. And that's where the Formula for Miracles technology comes in. And so we're not going to get too much into the geek, but essentially it's a special way of encoding audio programs using binaural beats and muscle testing and healing energy, such that you can simply listen to the programs with headphones and it will clear your blocks as you listen to it. So that's really exciting. So that's another way you can clear your blocks. The last one I'll throw out is I can teach you how to do this for yourself. So if you want to come to a training class, I'll teach you how to do this. And you can heal yourself and all the people around you for the whole rest of your life. So
oh my gosh, that is incredible. I mean, being able to heal others through this and heal yourself, and I mean, being a technology that is sort of has this replicatability, like any scientific method, that it's replicatable. That is incredibly exciting, and I think some of what you've described there is new since the last time you were here. I'm thinking, because I don't remember that last upgrade that you talked about.
Well, there's certainly a lot of new stuff. Probably the biggest new things I have would be mostly around my VIP club, which is my members program for people who are really serious, who were sick of being disappointed with the law of attraction and energy healing and want to see some results. I have expanded that dramatically. And so I have an enormous amount of events and material that I offer through there. We do group healing sessions on a regular basis. I give away private sessions for the group. I create special event material every month based on the interest and demands of the members. They get to beta test all my new products, and I mean, it goes on and on and on. So there's an enormous amount of new material and live events. And if you are in the VIP club at the silver level, there's something like a couple hundred hours of recorded healing sessions you can access. So that'll keep you busy for pretty long. Yeah.
Wow. Well, what I wanted to do, Brent, if we can, do we have time to take people through some of the theta work and begin to identify some of the beliefs that may be holding them back, and then actually uninstall? And I want you guys to imagine like you're looking at your computer, and let's say you somehow pick up some virus because you're on the web, and you see this little Norton antivirus comes up and says, I've got this virus, and it flashes, and it has this little button that says, do you want to take this virus out? And you say, you know what, I don't want this in my computer anymore because it's slowing down how I can operate during the day on this thing. I'm going to click uninstall, and then it starts uninstalling, and you see that taskbar, kind of progress bar go across, and then successfully uninstalled. And then we're going to actually, I think, Brett, can we actually do some of that on some beliefs if some people here have them? Can we do them in the group too?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So first thing I'll do is I'll give everyone a whirlwind explanation of muscle testing. I want everyone to know that I'm going to go really fast. So if you have any trouble with this, please check out the material, go through my website, and then listen to the recording and go through it again, because it would just take way too long to give a detailed tutorial, so I'm going to give it really fast. And so essentially there's a lot of ways you can muscle test. You can test with the fingers, the arm, pendulums, dowsing rods. The easiest way to learn is called the standing test or the sway test. And essentially all you want to do is stand up, face to the north, have your feet about hip-width apart, toes pointed straight forward. Make sure you have a glass of water handy, because if you're dehydrated, you may have trouble with this. And you simply stand with your legs very straight, and you make statements out loud. If they resonate true with your subconscious, what will happen is there's a resonance that occurs in the cells of your body that strengthens the electromagnetic field. That will actually cause you to tilt or push forward towards the north. And this is a very real physical effect. It's not just an energy healing abstraction. This is a real physical thing. If you make a statement that resonates false with your subconscious, your field will weaken, and you'll actually feel yourself tilt or push backwards towards the south, which is pretty amazing. And so again, I know I'm going really fast, and we're not going to cover troubleshooting. I found that about 2/3 to 3/4 of our listeners should be able to get it right away without needing any more explanation. For everybody else, you might want to go through the Secrets of Muscle Testing video, do some troubleshooting, then you should be able to get it pretty quickly. Most people can learn this in about 10 to 15 minutes. And so what we'll do here is everybody, if you want to follow along, go ahead and stand up, face to the north. If you already know another method of testing, if you know how to use your fingers or a pendulum or a dowsing rod or something, you're welcome to use that instead. But if you haven't done this before, at least not on your own, give the standing test a shot. And so why don't we do 2 common blocks to prosperity that a lot of people have.
Okay, I'm going to stand up too. I'd recommend everyone else do that too. Yeah. Sorry, Brent. I just wanted to let you know I'm standing up. And, okay, so I am ready. I hope everyone else is ready.
So first thing we'll do is what we call a calibration, just to see if your test is clear. So go ahead and stand up, face to the north, feet about hip-width apart, toes straight forward, legs straight, and just say out loud, yes.
Yes.
And that should cause your body to tilt or push subtly forward towards the north.
Yep, that's what mine did.
Perfect.
Yes.
Now we're going to do a backwards calibration and just say out loud, no.
Okay. No. Yep, I'm going back. Okay, I'm going to assume most people are doing the same. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's all there is to it. Now we'll do a couple of these blocks. Everybody again, stand up, legs straight, say, I have to be poor to be close to God.
I'm going to just say it and let everyone repeat and test. Or should I say it, Brent, or just keep silent?
Go ahead and say it out loud. Yeah.
Okay,
Say it out
I
loud.
have to be poor to be close to God. Okay, I fell backwards. I don't know what happened to the rest of the group, but what does that mean when I fall backwards after that?
If you go backwards, it means you do not have that program as your subconscious.
Okay,
And so
that
because this is
virus
what we would call
program
a bad
not there.
program, right, we would want it to be backwards. If you got it forwards, what I want you to do is just say yes out loud to give me your permission, and I'm going to go pull that out. Okay, and let's try that again. So if you had a yes, let's try that again. Stand up and say, I have to be poor to be close to God. And most everybody who had it should now be going backwards. Now, it's not going to be 100%. It's possible you still have a forwards. What that usually means is either you need a sleep cycle to process the change, so it might be gone if you test it tomorrow morning, or in other cases, which are more rare, there could be another belief or program that's more powerful that's anchoring it or blocking it from shifting. Don't worry about that for now, but there is a process we call digging to identify and go find out what's anchoring it and clear that out, and then everything goes with it. So that's a real fast and dirty example of the healing process. So we'll do one more here.
Okay.
Another common block that a lot of people have is a vow of poverty. Again, rare that it happens in the modern world, but a lot of us carry it ancestrally or come in with it. So if you want to test it, go ahead and stand up, face to the north, feet hip width apart, toes straight forward, legs straight, and say, I have a vow of poverty. And so if you're going forward, it means that you believe you do. That's a subconscious block. If you're going backwards, it means you don't. And so if you had it forward, go ahead and say yes out loud, and I'll go and clear it for you. And retest.
I didn't have that. Okay.
One more time. Say, I have a vow of poverty. And so now it should be gone. And so that's just a real quick and dirty example of how we not only identify what blocks are there, but also one of your options for taking it out. And about 98, 99% of the time, once you've cleared it, it's gone permanently. You don't have to worry about it anymore. You have literally made a permanent shift in your subconscious financial thermostat.
Wow. Wow. Okay, I want to hear from people to see kind of what's going on and what's happened. Any of those blocks, did you have any? Maybe we can do one or two more, and then I want to talk about a few other things going on. And I know we're getting, gosh, things are moving so quick here. Let's see. Someone said, Jessica said, yes, I was going forward on those blocks, and now I am not, particularly the vow of poverty. Sandy said the vow of poverty was a big yes for her. She's in Paris, France. And so this is amazing that we can literally, Ellen just freaking out, Brent. She says, oh, my God, did that really happen? I was yes on both, and both changed. Thank you. Now, she is unbelievable. Now, Paul is asking, Brent, how did you clear it? How did you clear it? Do we need to get into that, Brent? I mean, I don't know.
That's something that I explain and teach in the live training classes. For now, you don't have to worry about that. Yeah.
Don't worry about it, guys. Just know that Brent has mastered this ability. Can we do a few more? Because this is really cool. We talk about transformation, we talk about clearing, but to know, a lot of times we have people come on to do clearings, and it's like this actually tells us what needs to be cleared versus somebody coming up with a general clearing statement and putting it on you, maybe for something you don't even have.
Yes. And so I guess I should also say for anyone that wants to understand what's happening behind the scenes, my book, Where Science Meets Spirit, The Formula for Miracles, will explain that for you.
Okay,
so
Where Science Meets Spirit book. Okay.
Yeah, let's do a couple about relationships. And I know that we're primarily focused on wealth for this call, but the reason I created a full-length relationship program wasn't just to help people find love. It was also to help people make money. And the connection may not be obvious, but I want to point out that, first of all, that love and money are both attracted out of the same energy center in the body, which is the second chakra. And so they often will go together. Secondly, I want everyone to just realize that even if you're in a relationship or you're happily single, that if you want to make more money and have more success in your life, that all of that money will come to you through relationships with other people. It's that simple. And so if you can improve the quality of your relationships, you will make more money. Not only that, you will be physically healthier and emotionally healthier, and there's many, many studies out there that have proved that connection. Because a lot of people say, oh, I don't need to work on relationships. It's like, well, if you have any health issues or you just want to be happier or if you would like to have more money, it's a good thing to look at. So we'll do a couple about relationships here. The first one I want everyone to test is go ahead and stand up, face north, feet about hip-width apart, toes straight forward.
People are just freaking out here. They're literally shifting, so I'm guessing this is very exciting. Okay, Brent, keep going.
And
sorry.
Just so you guys know, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, just the very scratch off the top.
Okay.
Let's have everybody test. I know what it feels like to be completely loved.
Okay, I know what it feels like to be completely loved. Whoa, man, I'm falling back on that one.
Okay.
Whoa.
So if you had a no or a backwards, this is what is called a download. It's something you want to have a yes on. It's basically a good program that if you're missing it, you'll have a no. So if you got a backwards,
I got a no.
Go ahead and say yes out loud to give me your permission, and I'll go install that for everybody right now.
All right. Yes.
And let's do it again. One more time. I know what it feels like to be completely loved.
I know what it feels like to be completely loved. I just went forward. I mean, literally, I just went forward. Again, let me do this again. And everyone follow along. I know what it's like to be completely loved. I start going forward before I even finish saying it. And, I mean, I've been doing work on myself for, like, I was 17 years old. This is, and, you know, I've been on so many of these calls. I mean, I've had work done like crazy. And literally, we got to that issue and changed it. Now, I mean, obviously, there's probably more I want to do because is it possible that if I had that, there might be some other strands or things that are additional beliefs that flowed off of that?
Well, sure. Yeah. That's typical.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, want to do one more?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Let's do I deserve to be loved. So everyone stand up, face north, legs straight, and say, I deserve to be loved.
I deserve to be loved. Okay, I'm going forward on that one.
Okay, good. So you have that. Anybody that has a no or a backwards, go ahead and say yes out loud, and I'll change that for you. We'll do a little download here. Okay, and try it again. I deserve to be loved. And so really that's all it takes to make a huge shift in your life. You identify the blocks or the missing downloads, and then you go clear out the blocks and put in what you need. And then your life transforms. And like with my mother, we did this for about 40 minutes, this process. We cleared, maybe a dozen blocks, and then she instantly healed of a life-threatening cancer. And she was just one among a few thousand.
Well, I want to read kind of what's going on here because I know we're getting short on time, and people are just literally writing in. Juanita said, I had both of the blocks, and I am now clear. And I want to hear from people what happened with the love blocks, too, because one of the special things that we're doing is actually not just financial prosperity, health, but also love and relationships as well. But Juanita said, I had both of the blocks. Now I'm completely clear. Diane said, that was awesome. Jennifer said, I'm smiling from ear to ear from the release. I was a yes on both. Now, she's talking about the poverty vows. Now I am clear. This is incredible. She said, Lori from Rottingham said, wow, the poverty vow, I almost fell in the North Pole, but then it's gone forever, I hope. So she got cleared. Constance from Oak Park, this is the first time I've ever done this. I'm amazed my body moved. I told you guys, Brent is incredible. Okay, we've got another person. Milton said, yes, I almost moved he moved forward on the vow of poverty, and then when it cleared, he moved back, so he didn't have it. Edita says she tested positive to the vow of poverty, but then after the clearance, she swayed sideways. Without getting too deep into that, what could that mean if you sway sideways?
That's a good question. They could mean a couple things. First of all, it could just mean that your muscle test is off. You might need to just do some troubleshooting to get it clear. That's 90% of the time. If you go sideways, you don't get an answer. You just have to work on your muscle test until you clearly calibrate. It's also less rarely, it can happen that, one, you might catch yourself in the middle of shifting. And so if you test it when it's shifting, you might get a sideways or an inconsistent result. And most rarely, it's very rare, but it's possible that you can have what we call dual or conflicting beliefs, which is, for example, if you have a belief that says that I am rich and a belief that says I am poor, it's possible to have both of those at the same time. And if you have those, it could cause you to sway sideways or get an inconsistent result.
Okay, well, and like you said, sometimes you have to sleep on it so that processes, and it may just take a while for that to clear out. It's like if you imagine your computer is removing the virus, and you come back 30 minutes, and Norton is still removing the viruses, and that's kind of what's going on with your body. Colette said, "Oh my God, this is wild." Yeah, you have to reboot. Exactly.
Yeah, sometimes you have to reboot, and that's what happens when you sleep at night is you're rebooting.
Oh my gosh. Claire, really quick from Liverpool, she said, I had a strict Catholic upbringing, and I believed that I had to be poor. And I nearly fell face forward after the first question, and Brent cleared it. So, Brent, I want to, because they're just flying in here now. I want to talk about some of the different areas that this has worked in, and maybe we can do one or two more as we go forward, because some people are just literally asking. But for people kind of here wondering what this can work on, I want to kind of read some of these things, and any stories or things that you come out with, or maybe just tell me if you've seen results in these areas, and I'm just going to go through them. Cancer, we talked about with your mom. HIV, have you seen things in that area?
Yes, I've seen
asthma.
I've had more than one client go to an undetectable viral load with HIV. Because you can't really prove you don't have it. All you can do is have a test that shows it doesn't show up on the test. That's what undetectable viral load means.
Wow. Asthma.
Yes. I have had great success with asthma, and one of my very first professional clients was someone who worked for my video game company who had lifelong asthma, and I had a session with him, and it disappeared overnight, completely gone.
Oh my gosh. Allergies? I'm going to just throw some of these out at you. Okay.
In fact, I have healed so many cat and dog allergies because when I first started my practice, I worked from home, and I had cats, and I had people who come over and say, oh, Brent, I can't do this. I'm allergic to cats. And so I'd have to knock out their cat allergy in the hallway and then bring them in. I never had a client who had to go home and skip because of their cat allergy. I got so bored with that I created a Formula for Miracles encoded audio that clears allergies automatically, and that's part of the special offer package. So yes, hundreds of allergies, maybe 1,000.
Well, what about, we talked about prosperity and love and relationships and did some of tip of the iceberg on the testing, but what about like just the transformation? We talk about like depression, guilt, anger, shame, issues of not being worthy, all of that stuff. Any thoughts on that or history on that?
Yes, really, I think that if you're trying to battle depression or any emotional or spiritual psychological disorder without knowing how to do this, it's sort of like being a boxer with both hands tied behind your back. Good luck. And I have absolutely seen severe depression vanish overnight. It doesn't always go that quickly. Sometimes there's more steps involved. But yes, I have seen radical emotional transformation, sometimes just in one session from this.
Well, I'm telling you, Paula says she's feeling warmth in her abdomen. Jennifer said, I had both blocks on love. Now I am crying from this release. So she's incredibly amazed. Bob said, wow, finally something that really works. The people are just flying in with comments. I mean, it's just literally all kind of people writing back and forth. Milton from South Portland, Maine. I did have blocks of love. Now both are cleared. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Audrey, thank you, thank you, thank you. Again and again, let me ask about weight loss. I mean, we talked a little bit about that, achieving healthy metabolism, body and weight issues. Anything there?
Yeah, absolutely. There's almost always, in about 95% of people with weight issues, there's powerful emotional, psychological things that you can pretty much only resolve completely doing something like this. And in fact, so many people have this, including this was a big struggle for me. I wrote an entire book on it called Spiritual Weight Loss, which is included in the special offer package, designed as one-stop shopping for everything you need to know about diet, nutrition, metabolism, exercise, cleansing, as well as coverage of the belief systems you need to look at in the subconscious to get you past the emotional blocks that are preventing you from losing weight.
Wow.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to ask about, there's so many questions coming in. I'm trying to get to everybody. Literally just 100 just flew in here. Really quick, the prosperity side, because that's one of the ones I see a lot here. A lot of people dealing with some of the shifts in one aspect of the economy and sort of the whole emotional economic side and money. What are some of the things you've seen with money in this? Like, we did some removal of blocks there. Obviously, there's more to do, more questions. But when those things are removed, what have you seen happen to people?
I mean, I could keep you busy for hours with all the stories about prosperity, but I mean, I've seen amazing things happen. I'll share one story which happened to me very early on. This was back when I was just learning this and still on disability, which was that I had a hearing for Social Security disability, and I had been denied before. And I reapplied, and I had a lawyer, and I was going to go to the hearing, and my lawyer didn't show up. And I had done a little process to clear my blocks on this so I could win and get my benefits. Because for years, disability was the only thing keeping me off the street. And my lawyer had been yelling at me the day before, telling me I had an impossible case, and I was wasting his time expecting him to go into court. And so I showed up, and my lawyer had actually arrived 30 minutes late, got into a fight with the security guard, and got arrested and dragged out in handcuffs. And so I was forced to represent myself at the hearing with no legal training. And so I figured I could pull it off because I had seen so many episodes of Law and Order. And I went and I represented myself, and I got a favorable judgment. And that literally kept me off the street long enough that I was able to learn and master the healing process and open my own business. I had another client who was actually, he was a personal trainer I was working with, and he heard a little bit about my work, and he said, "Hey, Brent, I want you to do a session on me on prosperity." And literally, within 48 hours, the first thing that happened was he got a loan repaid that had been like 12 years ago from a friend, and his friend had started a 12-step program and was making his amends and sent him a check out of the blue. He also had a couple old used cars he was trying to sell, and they both sold. And he had major breakthroughs in his business that brought him over $30,000 that week. I had another one of my students who became my assistant for many years, Robert Cote. He first took the class from me, I think it was back in 2006. And he came to the class, and he was completely broke, like living right on the verge of homelessness and starvation. And when he was at the class, on his way into the class, he was in a car accident. And his car was totaled. He still came to the class, though, which was amazing. And during the class, I taught manifesting, and he cleared his blocks and did a process and asked for a new car. Within the next 3 days, he was given not one but 2 cars. Just given them. One of them he fixed up and kept. The other he sold for a couple $1,000.
Okay, so I've got a question if I could jump in here. I mean, I understand kind of how the universe works, and I understand energy, and I understand sort of, you collapsing all these possible outcomes so that certain things come into your reality. But, I mean, what is the explanation of what happens, I guess, from your own words, when that vibration, that energy, that thought form, that field, that virus is removed? I mean, how can something like that, I don't know if we should try to explain, but how does it come sort of in your explanation that quickly?
Sure. Again, this is another topic I would love to, if I had a week, I would love to really dig into it with everybody. But the real quick answer, I'll do the best I can, is to say that our lives exist in a state of potentiality, that there's many potential futures that are there for us. Which future we choose, that decision is made primarily based on this subconscious programming. It's not so much the conscious mind, it's the subconscious mind that makes the choice. And so, for example, over the next year of your life, there are many different potentials about how that could play out. You could be very poor, you could be very wealthy, you could be somewhere in the middle. Maybe you work really hard to make money, maybe you work really easy to make money. Maybe you love what you do, maybe you hate what you do. And so they all exist, they all sort of exist overlapped in a quantum state. And your unconscious mind, in conjunction with the law of attraction, picks and chooses all of those moment to moment. In my book, Where Science Meets Spirit, I use the metaphor of the cosmic radio tuner, that essentially your reality is like a radio. And so you know that your radio can pick one of many different frequencies to tune into, correct? And so all of these different radio stations, the signals are there all the time. And so depending on where you live, there may be dozens or a few hundred different radio stations that are all broadcasting. But you can only listen to one at a time with your radio. And so you simply tune to the station that you enjoy, and you listen to it, and then if you don't like what they're playing, you shift to a different station. Really, what we're doing with this belief work, with the subconscious reprogramming, is giving you a tool to consciously control how the subconscious mind tunes into a particular reality. And so you can adjust your tuner by clearing your blocks and installing these downloads. And again, I want to emphasize that it will often work like a magic wand, but don't panic if you don't get everything you're looking for right away. Because really what you'll find about life, and anybody that's mature enough or done enough spiritual work will know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't get what you want right away, it's nearly always because the universe has something better in store for you. And so if you don't get that job you were really excited about and thought you were going to get, don't panic. Don't blame the law of attraction. Don't think it's hopeless. Most likely the universe has a better job that's waiting for you. And so if you see this as a higher dimensional tool to reprogram your reality for the entire rest of your life and take a holistic view, which is you see your life as a whole, right, rather than a view where you break it down into tiny little boxes. If you take a holistic view, you'll see that this always works. 100%.
What got me, what you said was the frequency. And, you know, there's a lot of people right now tuning into the frequency of lack, of scarcity, economic woes, challenges, you know, with the economy and this and that. And that literally there's a whole other reality on this different frequency level of abundance. And our only job is really to tune into that, but not just say, well, yes, I'm abundant. I listen to the show and I listen to Darius, or I do this, or I've read The Secret, but actually going in and removing the viruses or the programs, the subconscious beliefs that are keeping your station stuck against your will, your conscious will, to that poverty vibration. And it's not just enough to say, oh, I want to be abundant, and I've repeated it 20 times. There's stuff under the surface that's keeping people stuck, correct, Brent?
Right, exactly. There's really two things that have to happen if you want to see real change. Number one is if you any affirmations, visualizations, mantras, manifestation, healing, if you're not doing it from a theta brainwave, you're wasting your time. So that's number one. Number two is this is a primarily unconscious process. 99% happens subconsciously. And so I don't care how many mantras you say. I don't care how many times you dance on the stage and high-five your friends and look in the mirror and say you're a millionaire. Congratulations, you got 1% on board. But unless you get into that 99% and clear these blocks and make sure you have the right software, you're wasting your time. Essentially what most people are trying to do with their wealth affirmations and thinking positively is painting a desktop icon on their computer and clicking it repeatedly without having the software installed. That's not going to work, right? That's kind of silly.
Right.
But that's most law of attraction workshops and programs are very well intentioned, but they're just not complete. And that's why that I saw a study about the law of attraction that said that the success rate is less than 1%. That actually fits perfectly with my experience, which is that this is a 99% subconscious process. And so if you don't know how to work with the subconscious, I would expect a success rate around 1%, which is exactly what happens. If you know how to work with the subconscious, that skyrockets. I mean, it is rare that I go more than a few days without seeing a miracle happen with one of my clients. That's very rare.
Wow. Well, I want to do this. I know we're getting close to time, and I know there's tons of questions, and I know we probably want to bring Brent back here as soon as we can, maybe to do more work. But ultimately, to really get into this, what I would like to do is kind of share what you put together for us, because obviously even if we did an hour worth of clearing, there's a lot more tools, practices, and a sort of a progression that you want to take people through so they do this correctly. And really the way to do that is to go deeper into the work. Brent, I'm going to tell people where this is first so they can follow along, because you've done some incredible stuff with us here that you've added to this. It's at uwealthrevolution.com/Brent, B-R-E-N-T. That's uwealthrevolution.com/Brent, B-R-E-N-T. And Brent, tell us what you have here for us. A lot of great stuff.
Sure. And so this offer really is a one of a kind. I can honestly say I've never offered it at anywhere near this price. I wanted to give a thank you to Darius and all of his listeners for being here to support me in my work. And so I put together a bundle, which I've never done before, which is you get all of my major programs. You get every Formula for Miracles program that I have available at the time we're recording this, all bundled together. You get the entire Unleash Your Inner Millionaire program, which has been my flagship product and my bestseller, which includes 8 hours of subconscious reprogramming and advanced, really graduate level law of attraction to teach it to you at a whole new way. And I don't care how many workshops you've been to or how many books you've read, I guarantee you do not know all this stuff. And so that's there. We did a little sample of the subconscious block clearing where we cleared just a couple here today. The Unleash Your Inner Millionaire program clears 327 of those blocks just by listening to it. So that's one of the pieces.
Really quick, Brent, I know I'm jumping in. I guess do me that favor if I jump in, please. Let me do it, because one question is, so when you do that, are they doing the muscle testing on the Unleash the Inner Millionaire, or is that where they're doing that? So they're doing 300.
It is recommended that you do it. It's not required. For people who have a lot of trouble with it, don't let that stop you. It is recommended that you at least try it, but it's not strictly required. So if you're have a serious medical condition or you just can't do it, don't worry, you'll still get benefit. I just recommend it, and there's an in-depth tutorial included. In addition, another piece of the package is the Secrets of Muscle Testing video, which is an hour-long video that will teach you everything you're ever going to need to know about muscle testing, including in-depth tutorial on multiple kinds of testing, a lot of the theory, and in-depth troubleshooting. And so about 99% plus of my students and clients are able to get consistent muscle tests after watching the video. Again, it's everything you'll ever need to know. So that's another piece to it. A next major component is In Love for a Lifetime, which is the same format as Unleash Your Inner Millionaire, but it's all about relationships. And so I haven't before offered them together at this discount. The only time I offered them before, the price was almost $300. So, this really is unprecedented. And even if, again, as I mentioned before, even if relationships isn't a major challenge for you, even if your major challenge is either health or money, you want to go through this. And so, again, there's a lot of advanced material about the energetic dynamics of relationships, what happens with behind the terms and the spiritual components, the dynamics of attraction, romance, how to keep the spark alive, the truth about soulmates, the energetic anatomy of relationships, a simple explanation of why people end up in stale relationships and go to affairs and how to avoid that, as well as over 300 subconscious block clearings on blocks to love, romance, friendship, intimacy, sex, and that sort of thing. So that will completely change your reality if you want it to. Again, it's up to you. You'll also get both of my books. You get Where Science Meets Spirit, The Formula for Miracles, which explains how all this works and explains the state of the art in terms of the science of energy healing. So if you're left-brained like me and you like to understand it, you will absolutely love it. You'll devour it. You'll also get the audiobook version of that in case you prefer to listen to it. You'll get Spiritual Weight Loss, which is my one-stop shopping for diet, nutrition, metabolism, cleansing, emotional clearing for weight loss, reversal of aging, and eternal youthing. That one is not an audiobook because there's some charts and diagrams that just wouldn't translate well, but that is included. You'll also get the allergy clearing protocol I mentioned before, which is a Formula for Miracles and coded audio. Use it on all your allergies and watch them disappear. My success rate is somewhere between 80 and 90% with that. It's not perfect, I'll admit. None of this is 100%. But hey, is it worth 12 minutes of your time to clear an allergy forever? I hope so. You'll also get the trauma clearing protocol, which is a complete life changer. This will clear just about any deeply entrenched trauma on 3 levels through all your being on all 4 bodies. And so
what if you don't know, Brent, that you have a trauma? I mean, what if you just don't know? Can you just run it?
What will happen is the other programs will help you identify that. And so, for example, if you go through Unleash Your Inner Millionaire and you find out that a lot of the blocks to being a rich person don't clear for you, you would just go use the trauma clearing protocol to clear trauma from being rich. And so that's there to strengthen and amplify the effect of all the other programs. You'll also receive a half-price discount to live training if you want to come learn how to create miracles, for those that are interested. There's also some recorded conference calls, and the last piece of the package is really easy to overlook, and that's why I wanted to call it out. And that is the $1 trial to my Formula for Miracles VIP Club. And that is where most of my energy has gone the last few years, is to my members, because I want to give you access to me, unprecedented access to me on a day-to-day basis to help you with whatever your challenges are. And so I recognize that the simple truth is, it's not real salesy or sizzly, but the simple truth is that no book or audio program or class or any pre-created material could ever address and help you with every problem that's going to come up in your life. And so the VIP Club is there to give you a steady stream of live access to me. I do club calls 2, 3, 4 times a month where you can submit your blocks and I will clear them for you. You get a huge archive of access to recorded calls. You'll get access to the monthly special events. And we have a really cool voting system where you can vote and say, hey, Brent, this is a problem in my life. I have this disease, or this is my situation, or I'm going through a divorce, or I just lost my job, or whatever it is. And you can propose your ideas, and if other members have that same problem, they can vote on it. And I look at that every month and create new material for everybody, articles and videos that give you just straight to the point. I'm a no BS kind of person. My material is very dense. I personally hate it when I have to sit through a 300-page book to get 2 pages of content. None of my stuff is like that. I know you're busy, you don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to give you maximum bang for the buck. You'll also get access to private forums. I answer personally every day. You get discounts on privates and classes. You get access to my unreleased material to beta test. And, I mean, a whole bunch of cool stuff and a whole bunch of other amazing things that I don't even want to get into, because I could, keep you guys on the line for the next 3 hours just talking about VIP Club events that are coming up in the next 3 months. But please check it out. What tends to happen is there's so many pieces in this package that truly any one of them could totally change your life. And so it's really easy to overlook them. And so I just wanted to mention these. I don't want you guys to miss the VIP Club, because I believe that all these other things will make a tremendous quantum shift. You will understand the law of attraction, love, romance, money, prosperity at an entire new level. You will clear hundreds of blocks. You'll understand the science of energy healing. You know everything you ever need to know about weight loss. You can clear your allergies, clear your traumas, and then join the VIP Club and get a steady stream of access to me to give you what I think is so much bang for the buck that I'm going to be bold and say that personally I think you'd have to be somewhere between crazy and stupid to at least not check it out.
Yeah.
Because, that's where I pour my time and energy into every single day. I'm working way too hard trying to create immense value, because let's face it, one of the reasons I do this is we all know we're going through a huge shift. And everybody listening here, including me and Darius, we are the vanguard. We have chosen unconsciously to create big obstacles and problems in our lives to force us to adapt and learn new things. And so what I'm offering today are incredible tools for personal transformation. I want to get you healthy. I want to get you feeling good. I want to get you connected to the truth of your being, help you find passion, help you find love, make lots of money, right? These are tools for personal transformation. Over the next few years, I'm going to be subtly altering my focus to more group and global transformation. And once we have gotten our individual lives in line, I really believe that we are the vanguard that the world is going to call on to lead it into the new age. And I believe that 100%. And so, again, you got to get your house in order first. So I want to transform you personally starting today. When we're a year or two down the line, when you're feeling good, when you're in a better place, I want to take all those people and use the VIP Club and these calls as a platform to do massive global level healings and transformations. And I really
can imagine.
we can make that work. Yeah. The trouble is right now,
I can imagine.
Yes. There's not enough of us that have our houses in order to make that happen today.
Right.
But that's where we're going. That's why I'm doing this over the long run. And, you know, I'm hoping you'll want to join me.
I was thinking, I was just sort of sorry for blurting out there, but like, you know, 100,000 people listening in and doing clearings and all of this work, and then everybody helping to make that a reality. So I got to tell you, Brent, I'm in. So any way I can help with that, sounds like we're very similarly aligned, and I love it.
We know the threshold we need. We need about 10,000 to change the entire world.
Yes.
So you give me 10,000 people who are clear, who have gotten their own houses in order, who know how to do this. We'll end corruption, we'll end pollution, we'll stop global warming, we'll end terrorism, we'll end war, we'll end famine. I mean, maybe not overnight, but you give me 10,000 people that know how to do this, and we'll save the world.
Yeah. Yes.
But
all right, I'm going to tell people again where it is, just in case you missed it. It's at uwealthrevolution.com/Brent, BRENT. And it is actually, I mean, you would think it's about $1,270, which is the retail value. It's actually $97, which is the lowest we offer here. And for all of this, it should be a lot more. But Brent has a bigger mission here, and it's really to get you feeling good, to clear those subconscious blocks, those viruses in your human computer, those things keeping you from what you really are meant to be in your life, in your money, in relationships, in your health. And on that page, actually, at uwealthrevolution.com/Brent, there's literally testimonials from people in all sorts of areas, from prosperity to wealth, Parkinson's, relationships, back pain, chronic pain, back and hip pain, migraine, headaches, autism, parenting, TMG, emotional transformation, neck pain, sinus infection, meditation, intuitive abilities, food allergies, anxiety, chronic inflammation, hip pain, lower back pain, prosperity again, stage fright, money, love relationships, weight loss, panic attacks, bladder infections. It just goes on and on. You've got to see people's words. It goes on like for almost the whole page there. And then all of the other things Brent talks about is included all at the bottom. And one of the things we do, and I've got to say this, when the last time we had Brent on, very rarely, I think we only had like a couple out of hundreds and hundreds of people, 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're not happy with this, if you try this and you feel like it's not serving you, what we say is try it, transform, or it's free. And, you know, we don't have this happen very often, especially with Brent, but that is there as well. Brent, I just want to tell you, I mean, I feel the energy of this even stronger than before. I'm so excited you're back. And I love what you're doing. I love where you're pouring your energy in. And any final words for the group or anything else that we need to know?
A couple things. One is a funny little story, very quick, which is I had such a big backlog of testimonials this year that my assistant had to hire an assistant to help get them up. That's how many testimonials I have.
Wow.
The other thing is that if you came up to me and offered me $1 million in cash and said, I'm going to give you $1 million, Brent, but you can't use this anymore for yourself, I would laugh at you, because this is worth so much more to me than $1 million. And so if you guys want to pay me $1 million, I'd be happy to accept that. If not, we're perfectly good with 97. And if I had just one thing to give to everybody to take away, it wouldn't be anything about the subconscious mind or the law of attraction or money. It would actually be very simple, which is miracles happen and all the most amazing, wonderful things come into our lives when we are willing to set aside what we think we know. It's that simple. That is what it means to be spiritual. And so I know if you're like me, you may have been very disappointed with law of attraction or energy healing. You may have lost money on things that were dishonest. But I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, this is the real deal. And I encourage you to just give it a chance. Set aside all the reasons your mind is coming up with as to why it won't work for you or why it can't work for you. And I know that Darius and everybody listening who's been through their own spiritual journey knows that most of the amazing things that happen to you are not things that are planned, and they almost all result from letting go of what you think you know. If I had stuck to what I thought I knew, I never would have had my first session with Terry. I never would have experienced the miracle of my elbow. I never would have gotten a new career and be able to touch so many lives. And I can go on and on and on. If I had accepted what my doctors and the nurses and my sister told me about my mother's cancer, she would have died 2 years ago. But in those cases, I was fortunate enough, through the grace of God, to have what it takes to set aside what I thought I knew. And a lot of people will ask me, Brent, do I have to believe in God or whatever to get this to work? No, there's no particular beliefs that you need to have. All you need is a belief that it might be possible for things to change. That's all. You don't have to know how. You don't have to know when. And I knew enough about science and physics to know that nothing was 100%. I was a die-hard agnostic when I was introduced to this work. But I knew that there was a tiny, tiny potential, maybe a millionth of a percent, that I was wrong about all that and my life could change, and it did. So whatever you've been through, whatever your disappointments, and heck, this won't be the answer for everybody. I'm the first to admit that. It's okay if it's not. You know, for this and everything else you do, just be willing to be wrong about what you think you know. Be willing to try something different, and then the miracles will find you when you're ready for them.
Wow.
And I know for a lot of the listeners,
I agree with that.
This stuff today, but maybe not everybody, and that's okay too.
Well, I'm gonna let everyone know again. It's at uwealthrevolution.com/Brent, BRENT, and just to read all of the testimonials here. It's literally, I would say this is probably about 4 pages if we printed it all out, if not more, on that page, and all of the programs we talked about, including the Love for a Lifetime, which is the removal of blocks and subconscious beliefs on the relationship side, and then also the allergy clearing where science meets spirit, the Health Club DNA activation, an age reversal teleseminar, the genetics and epigenetics, spiritual weight loss, and the VIP coupon, and also the Unleash Your Inner Millionaire, the trauma clearing meditation, the deep theta meditation. All of that is included, plus all the relationship work, which is a whole other piece that Brent is including. All of that for $97, and we say try it, transform, or it's yours. We will refund your money, and you're back to where you are now, but probably much better off because you, just as many people on this call, have removed a lot of blocks already. So we're very confident, and we just want you to be the best you can be. Brent, thank you so much for being here, for sharing this, and really just putting this out in the world and coming here and sharing it with all of us today.
Well, thanks for having me. You know, this is exactly why I'm here. I've learned some amazing things, and I want to share it with the world so we can get our own houses in order. And once we've transformed ourselves, then we can tackle the big picture. So that's coming. Wow. Stay tuned.
Wow.